Oh, hey, what's up? This is the pre-party, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is Jay Cal, and we're here every Tuesday to talk NWA wrestling with you, that NWA fam. And this is getting interesting, gentlemen. This is getting exciting. We are seeing more and more championships now being defended on the regular broadcasts of the National Wrestling Alliance, and I think this is getting really, really fun. Now, I do see some of my pals that I would be remiss if I didn't say hello to, so real quick, what is up, Willie Bowen? I see Rick Del Santo in the house, my boy Rick. Pro Wrestling Zone Podcast is here. Terry McDermott, the great Hisa, and Bobby Petito all in the house. I do appreciate you, gentlemen, joining us each and every week right here, Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific, right here on YouTube and on Twitch.tv. Glad you guys are here. Glad you guys are checking things out. Woo! Already out of breath. So this week, obviously, there's a lot of cool things coming up. This is Wrestlemania Weekend. We keep talking about, the spotlight, the epicenter of pro wrestling seems to be the Dallas-Fort Worth area, as a multitude of wrestling promotions are heading down south, down to the Lone Star State, if you will, for wrestling, and lots of it. Now, we heard earlier today that World Class Revolution and Reality of Wrestling have postponed their shows. Let me real quick, I'm going to get that message for you here. Let me see, I have it right here on my bear with me just one second, fellas. I have it here, or maybe I don't. I thought I did. Bear with me, guys. Sorry about that. Here it is. Here's the statement released by World Class Pro Wrestling. Due to the unforeseen circumstances, we are rescheduling the Texas Showdown event, Texas Legends, and the Sherry Martel Classic. The new dates will be announced once we have rescheduled and confirmed with talents. All tickets will be refunded through Eventbrite within the next few days. We apologize for the inconvenience and look forward to putting on these great events as a future date. What that means basically is that the events connected to World Class Pro Wrestling and the Reality of Wrestling Booker T show have been postponed, canceled. So that's going to free up opportunities for the fans who are down there in Texas to check out other acts. I mean, we know that WrestleCon is going to be featuring a ton of wrestling. Our own NWA World Tag Team Champions, La Rebelion, will be a part of the AAA portion of the WrestleCon. We know that the Impact event, the Multiverse of Madness, is going to feature a intergender tag team match featuring former World's Heavyweight Champion Nick Aldis and wife Mickie James taking on our current World's Heavyweight Champion and Impact Digital Media Champion, always ready, Matt Cardona, and his wife Chelsea Green. So, I mean, there's a lot of wrestling happening down in the state of Texas. In a lot of ways, it's being impacted what's happening what's happening down there with some of the NWA talents. I mean, Tim Storm is literally wrestling Thursday night for our friends over at Iconic Heroes of Wrestling Excellence. We talked to David Fuller and did a whole preview of the show on Sunday. You could check that out. Just go to the Alliance Guys video page on YouTube, youtube.com/the Alliance blog, and it'll be there. So a lot of things are happening this week, and it's been pretty bonkers. It's been just very, very sorry, I got a little distracted here for a second. It's been very busy to say the least, right? So sorry, I just have to take care of this real quick. Apologize. So with that being said, I mean, the NWA in and of itself doesn't actually have events going on in Texas, but a lot of their talent will be there, like before the aforementioned Matt Cardona and everything else. So we'll see how that all plays out. Sean Mega's in the house. Welcome, Sean. Lamb is here and Wrestling with MMA. How you doing, friends? Good to see you guys. It really is it really does appear to be a very big weekend for pro wrestling. And that's, I mean, we're only touching the tip of the iceberg. There's so many events that are happening down there in Texas this weekend. And, the Game Changer Wrestling, the Collective, they're calling it, Mission Pro Wrestling will be down there, of course. Just a lot of wrestling. It almost feels like we're returning to some sort of sense of normalcy, like back to like 2019. Remember in 2020, a lot of wrestling promotions who were making plans to be a part of WrestleMania obviously canceled because of the lack of attendance and people who could actually have the show. So it's been crazy, man. It's really it's out of this world. So as we return to the sense of normalcy, the NWA, based on last week's show, based on the episode of Power, based on Crockett Cup 2022, I really love the direction that the NWA is going. I really love the direction that, Billy Corgan has the ship headed. I mean, title match after title match every week, and it's only been 2, but every week since this season of Power has kicked off, we've been treated to a title match. And last week we had the Hex and defending their tag titles against Paola Blaze and Genocide. And then we also had the World Junior Heavyweight Champion defend against Austin Aries. So right off the bat, super excited to see Homicide defending his Junior Heavyweight Championship against Austin Aries. Now this week we have another title match. If you guys watch NWA USA, you would have saw a real great match between Homicide and Doug Williams, and that was another really good, good junior heavyweight title match for Homicide. So that's 2 defenses that man has already had. Then we got the tag titles, kicking off this week, and it's not just that La Rebellion's defending the tag titles this week. It's like you start looking at where these belts are being defended and what's going on. I mean, look. We know that Homicide will be defending his junior heavyweight championship on April 3rd. That looks like following WrestleMania weekend. That's a big deal. Then you've got, just this past weekend, we had, Camille defending her women's championship at Glory. And of course, like the aforementioned, the multiverse of matches, Aldis and Mickie James taking on Chelsea Green and Matt Cardona, the aforementioned match. And then I think a lot of people are really looking forward to this one, and that is Davey Richards challenging Matt Cardona, title versus title, winner takes all for All-Star Wrestling in West Virginia. So again, that's a pretty big get. I don't know that it gets much bigger than that. And what I'm most excited about seeing is that these titles are being defended. What I didn't have a graphic for here, but we know that's coming up for the NWA World Tag Team Champions, is that of course they're facing The End tonight on Power, which was actually taped last week, but it's happening tonight on Power. They're also set to wrestle this weekend on Thursday night. They'll be defending against Drago and Aerostar for AAA. Now, this will be the first time that Los Luchas, wow. I think I just had a stroke. This will be the first time that Mecha Wolf and Bestia 666 will have defended the tag titles for AAA. Now, it's not the first time that we've seen the tag team champions in Mexico. They've been wrestling for the Crash. They've actually won the Crash titles, but this match again isn't in Mexico. It's in Texas. It's in Dallas, but it will be for AAA. So we're starting to see more of that. Collaborative with the teams working together, promotions working together. We're seeing La Rebellion in Dallas representing the NWA taking on Aerostar, and Drago representing AAA. So that to me is very exciting. We're seeing that more and more matches are happening like that. Also, it was announced earlier this week too, on June 2nd, which is a long time from now, La Rebellion will be heading to Liverpool in the United Kingdom to defend the tag team titles against the North. And the North, excuse me, I'm pulling up my data here. I should have had it ready. I apologize. They'll be taking on the North, which is a tag team of Bonesaw and Damien Corvin, who are the tag team champions for not only TNT, but also I believe they're the tag team champions for, I want to say PCW, but I could be mistaken. I don't have that info in front of me. But, again, we're seeing multi-time title matches, and this isn't even the first time La Rebellion's faced these guys, but it will be the first time the NWA tag titles will have been defended in the United Kingdom, which begs the question, is it time for the NWA to do a spotlight show in the UK? I mean, there's lots of rumors. There's lots of rumors that the NWA might be doing a spotlight show in Poland. There's been a lot of talk with the success of, Nick Aldis, wrestling in Poland for, I can't remember that name, the promotion, Pro Wrestling. I think it was, let's just call it Pro Wrestling Poland. I'm sorry. I didn't write that down. This is kind of off the top of my head, but, you have Nick Aldis, who had a lot of success in Poland the first time, and then heading back to Poland for a second time to wrestle against Cardonas. I think it just shows that audience is certainly into what the NWA is doing. And I feel like with that audience, you could do a spotlight show and feature talents like Doug Williams and Harry Smith and La Rebelion and The End and Hawk Ari. All these guys I think would certainly be interesting to see internationally and see how well they would do in an international market. And the UK, I mean, I think it's primed for it, right? We're having more and more pro wrestling kind of return to the United Kingdom. And I think seeing guys like Nick Aldis return, Shawn Michaels says stay away from Poland, at least for right now. I'm not sure how much they're being impacted by what's happening in Ukraine, but I guess that is something to consider. But, Tom Latimer and Camille were originally scheduled to be at PCW last year. Of course, things with the pandemic prevented that from happening. Doug Williams is from the United Kingdom. Nick Aldis has celebrated many championship matches in the UK. I think now would be a great time to see a spotlight show in the UK for the NWA. What do you guys think about that? How have I only been on the air for 15 minutes? Your boy is blown up today. So let's take a look at some of the matches that we're going to have for tonight on POWERRR. Of course, this is episode 2 of season, I guess, 14. Are we already on season 14? And I mean, you look at that poster, and I'm not trying to get crazy here, but look at that poster. Look at the talents that are on that poster. You've got La Rebellion, you've got the Briscoes, you've got The End, Maddie Radkowski, and Camille. You've got Nick Aldis. I mean, it's really shaping up. This is just the second episode of POWERRR, and look how big this show is already looking. I mean, excuse me. You have Maddie Radkowski versus Camille. Now, I saw on Twitter, Camille said something along the lines of, I told you to get a last name before we fought, so now it's the battle of the ladies with no last name. But Maddie Radkowski has been very impressive in her short time with the NWA. It's very fortunate to see her return. And then taking on Camille, this is a non-title match, but Camille has been so dang dominant as women's world champion. I'm very excited to see what she has in store for Maddie Radkowski. And I want to see how they treat Maddie Radkowski in this match. And mostly, I just like saying Radkowski. Some of your comments are, Bobby Batito says, I like Kerry Morton's match on NWA USA against Gustavo Aguilar. Yeah, I mean, look, Kerry Morton. So I have to always admit when I'm wrong because that's what a journalist does. If a journalist says one thing and then starts to believe another, they need to be transparent when it comes to that. Now, I thought Kerry Morton was kind of overhyped because of the last name on the contract, right? He's a Morton, he's a second generation wrestler, but he does have some charisma and he is pretty accomplished in the ring. He's not wrestling exactly like his daddy, but I mean, there is potential for Kerry Morton to have quite a career. We'll see how things continue to grow with Kerry Morton. But again, I have to admit that I was wrong. I kind of thought he was overhyped, and he really is kind of living up to the potential. Sean Mega agrees with me that the UK would be huge. I mean, there's just I've seen promotions closing down because of low attendance numbers. I know COVID-19 is still very much a real thing, not just in the United States, but around the world. But man, it would just be so cool to see like an NWA spotlight show. You know, one match I think that would be particularly good in the United Kingdom. And I'm not saying this is going to happen because the likelihood of the NWA getting Wembley Stadium is like slim and none because of the amount of tickets you would have to sell to justify that. But when Nick Aldis was world champion, that's the match I always wanted to see was him versus Harry Smith in Wembley Stadium. Now, again, that's probably not going to happen. They're probably more likely to head to the Niles. What is it? The nine. I just had a stroke. Uh, the much smaller venues throughout the United Kingdom. Like the place where IPW UK used to run. That'd be a lot more likely. But I still think it'd be a lot of fun, and I think it'd be a great way to introduce a new fan base to the show. I mean, it's not like POWERRR is exclusive to the United States. It's on YouTube. It's available all across the world. So a lot of our viewers of this podcast don't live in this country. So, I mean, it's not like it's impossible for you to watch the program if you choose to, if you live in the United Kingdom or Germany or Indonesia or Japan, Mexico, Canada. YouTube is readily available, so you can watch it in any of those places. Sean Mega says Jake Dumas is wrestling. Yeah, I mean, I saw that he was wrestling. I don't recall who he was wrestling against. And oddly enough, it's not readily available on the flyer that I'm looking at. We do know that Nick Aldis will be back in action, so maybe it'll be Aldis versus Dumas. I'm not exactly sure. But again, when was the last time you saw Nick Aldis wrestle on an episode of POWERRR? It's been a while, and I think that's the important part is you start showcasing your talented wrestlers. You start showcasing the talent on the show on POWERRR to make it seem more important. I mean, look, POWERRR is your vessel, right? POWERRR is what's paying the bills right now. You have quarterly pay-per-views with, the anniversary show, and we have had Crockett Cup, and there'll probably be 2 more pay-per-views this year, I would imagine. But POWERRR is what's really driving, Fight TV subscriptions. That's where you're generally people are getting the most content for their money, and then of course YouTube. For those who watch it on Fridays, that's where you're getting the majority of your content. Those hour-long episodes of POWERRR. So it really seems like they finally kind of understand that, and it looks like they're putting a lot more value into the pro wrestling, into the show that's kind of carrying the brand. Now, until the NWA is out touring and doing the spotlight show in the UK or doing monthly television tapings or touring on a more frequent basis, POWERRR is kind of where it needs to be, where the magic needs to happen. So it's very exciting to see you're bringing in a former world champion on the show. The women's world champion will be defending non-title or wrestling in a non-title match. And of course, the aforementioned tag team match, I think is really going to just bust the doors off this thing. And that is La Rebelion versus The End. The End had a very disappointing Crockett Cup. In fact, they were eliminated in the first round by Hawks Ari, and it wasn't like a very convincing fashion either. However, Hawks Ari did suffer the consequences of that victory when the POWERRR and Odinson did that double powerbomb move, which took Luke Hawks out of action. He suffered a concussion because of that. So it just it appears that they're stepping it up, at least for Power. What do you guys think? I mean, do you feel like the show's been getting better? I know that Rick said that this season has been exciting so far. I mean, we're basically this is the second episode of Power. We've had one episode of Power, one episode of USA. Each show has had title matches, so it looks pretty exciting to me. Um, what do you guys think? Bobby Batito says he likes Caprice Coleman. The promo on NWA USA, he's looking forward to watching Caprice Coleman wrestle in the NWA. And that's another kind of cool little throwback because, Caprice has been involved with the NWA going back many, many years. Working for NWA Anarchy, working some of those mid-Atlantic states with the NWA. It's kind of a homecoming for him. So earlier I mentioned Camille, and she had another successful title defense against Allie Katch. And now this is this will mark the I'm going to look it up here right now so I have the correct information, but this would mark her 14th title defense since becoming women's world champion. And just listen to some of the names of the talent she's defeated along the way, because she defeated Serena Deep to win the title. Remember, she defeated Thunder Rosa just to even get to the dance, but she defeated Amber Nova, Layla Hirsch, Chelsea Green, Anna Diaz, Kenzie Page, Christine Janes, Melina, Kiera Hogan, Killian King, Taryn Terrell, Shaolin Royal. At Crockett Cup, she defeated Chelsea Green and Kylie Ray, and now Allie Katch. I mean, that says something about your women's world champion, does it not? When we talk about steel sharpening steel, you talk about how good she's been for the NWA, how good she's been at not only developing herself, but her promos are getting better. Her in-ring is getting better. Each and every week, she's just that much better. And the fact of the matter is that she's towing the NWA title, the Burke, to all of these territories, all these places. River City Wrestling, not Game Changer Wrestling, excuse me. River City Wrestling, CCW, that's Coastal Championship Wrestling, Georgia Independent Pro Wrestling, just a lot of places where she's been and representing the NWA. Of course, she took the title with her to that big defense in at the old ECW arena, but that wasn't technically considered a title match. But she had that big matchup against Mercedes Martinez, which she came up victorious at. So it's really great to see that our women's world champion, much like the women's tag team champions, are taking that belt all over the place and they're defending everywhere. And I think that's very appropriate, considering that the NWA was always built on the backs of the territory system, where a champion would go from territory to territory. And we're seeing this modern day new version of that when we're seeing our women's tag team champions defending the titles in the UK, defending them in Germany. Another team that would make an appropriate addition to a spot show in the UK. But then you have Camille, who's defending the title all over the place. I just really feel like Camille has taken that next step. And as I posted on social media earlier this week, I don't think there's anyone better than Camille when it comes to women's wrestling, not just in the NWA, but in pro wrestling and period. We're huge Thunder Rosa fans on this site. You guys know that. And Thunder Rosa is an amazing professional wrestler. But, what Camille is starting to bring to the table is this very arrogant, heelish type wrestler where to me, Thunder Rosa, you can make her into a heel if you want. You could try to pigeonhole her as a heel, but the fans want to love her and they want to cheer for Thunder Rosa. And I think Camille has that unique ability to play heel and babyface. And in the NWA, you can see the fans are really trying to make her into a babyface, but everywhere else Camille goes, she could be that heel and it works. Man, we blew through the show pretty quick this week. If you guys don't start talking, I don't know what, maybe I can start singing and dancing for you. Getting back to let's talk about Impact Wrestling, right? Because at least they're showcasing our world's heavyweight champion in this intergender match, and it's kind of an interesting way that this thing has been developed, right? Because the feud between Aldis and Matt Cardona really just happened a few weeks ago, right? Cardona's only been champion for a couple of weeks. Remember, he beat Trevor Murdoch at Power Trip, which just happened back in February. And once he won that title, he's only defended it the one time at the Crockett Cup. Now, apparently, there was another title defense that happened at the TV tapings. But that matchup, that pairing of these four people, like, up until just a few weeks ago on Impact, Chelsea Green and Mickie James were being treated as a tag team. They were partners. They were best friends. They were confidants. They were sisters, if you will. And the betrayal from Chelsea Green that, we saw on Impact, but also the betrayal we saw Chelsea Green interfere in the match with Nick Aldis and Matt Cardona at the Crockett Cup, it really did kind of put this real big storm cloud between the friendship between Mickie James and Chelsea Green, and you knew that it wouldn't last forever. This they're teaming together in Impact, but it's kind of interesting the way that storyline was built up, not only in Impact between the women, but against the men in the NWA. And it kind of makes me think, what in the future will we see? How will this work out? How will this be compared going forward? Are we going to see more Impact talent head to the NWA? I mean, we're kind of already getting that, right? The fact that the OG Kingdom were there for the part of the TV tapings, the fact that we are seeing Mickie James in the NWA, maybe their partnership is happening and we're not savvy to it. What do you guys think? You're awfully quiet today. Bobby Petito brings up that Jay Spade, he would like to see Jay Spade challenge for that junior heavyweight championship. Now, remember, Jay Spade was made the number one contender for that junior heavyweight title before they were even crowned a champion. In fact, if I'm Jay Spade, I'm wondering, how did I already get overlooked twice for a title match when you had Austin Aries get the first shot at the title and then followed up with Doug Williams getting a shot at the title? It just kind of felt like, what's going on here? What is happening? So, anyways, what do you guys want to talk about? Whoa, this show is taking a nosedive. Terry McDermott says, overall, the NWA has improved in the last 2 months. And I do have to agree with you. We've been very critical of the NWA since its return. When I started doing this podcast, and before this was the Alliance Guys podcast or the pre-party with J Cal, we were talking about the NWA going as far back as 2009. And in that time, the goal of this podcast was to always promote the NWA and to push it as the next big thing, right? We spotlighted the promotions, we spotlighted the talent. We did everything we could to help get people over. And we talked to some of the big names of the NWA at the times, the Biggie Bigs of the world, the Damian Waynes, the Chance Prophets, the Drew Onyx. We did everything we could to help put a spotlight on these guys. And as the show continued to grow, and as the NWA continued to grow, there was a very symbiotic relationship. Now, the NWA doesn't need J-Cal to put them over anymore. In fact, they even have their own podcast guys to do that. But we still started covering Power from the very get-go. The Alliance guys covered every episode of the Power, and shortly after Power started, I started doing these pre-parties to get you excited for the shows that were happening. Now, that got to be harder and harder week in and week out when I really started to feel like the show was suffering. Not my show as much as Power's show. And there were some weeks where, let's be honest, Power got hard to watch. It was very difficult to watch. So we were very critical when we would talk about the show, not because we disliked the NWA or because we didn't like certain talents. It's just that we were trying to give honest opinions about the show. And thankfully, there were always bright spots. It was never 100% bad. There was always bright spots for the NWA, but we're starting to see more and more positives, I feel, as we led to Crockett Cup, and now we're seeing more and more uh, solid wrestling in the NWA. We're seeing more emphasis on the competition. Of course, the titles are being defended more regularly on Power and on USA. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see what this next step for the NWA will produce and how many stars we're going to see created here. You know, we talk about a lot of the potential that the NWA has. You know, Camille at one point was just potential. Now she's the women's world champion. Who's going to be the person that follows her? I mean, you've got Genocide, and she's wrestling Mandy Radikowski tonight. You've got Kenzie Page. You've got Tootie Lynn Ramsey. You've got Kylie Ray. All of these are women who are looking to make that next step in pro wrestling. I mean, and that even goes with girls who are already established, women who are already established, like Melina and Taryn Terrell. Who's going to be that next talent to take the next step? You look at the junior heavyweight division, and although it's relatively new, you know, you have a great steward in Homicide, but who's going to be the next guy? Is it going to be Colby Carino? Is it going to be Kerry Morton? Is it going to be PJ Hawks? There's so much potential in this junior heavyweight division. Jay Spade, Darius Lockhart, all of these gentlemen have an opportunity to grow with the NWA right now. And again, they're in the right spot. For the NWA, they're absolutely in that right spot. They are leveraged to succeed, and it's going to happen, I believe, a lot sooner than later, with Ring of Honor being off the market and now reportedly it's going to be some sort of amalgamation with AEW. It's not the same Ring of Honor, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be, especially when you hear things like Tony Khan doesn't necessarily want all the talents that were in Ring of Honor back in Ring of Honor. So maybe the Briscoes don't get that call. Maybe Briscoes stay part of the NWA for a while. Maybe Rhett Titus becomes a more regular person on the NWA roster. I really feel like there's a lot of positive things that can happen for the NWA, and it's leveraged in the right spot. It's got some of the right pieces. All we need to see is some consistent booking, some consistent storytelling, and getting more and more guys ready for that next step. So I feel like we're getting close to it. I feel like we're getting there, and it's been a wild ride. You know, I know that Heath has been doing this a lot longer than I have. And Heath says, yeah, both you and I survived the Tharp era. Man, and there was times in that Tharp era that it was rough. And people don't get it. Like, you know, when the New Japan deal stopped, it was hard. Like, and I'm not trying to take anything away from the champions, but just finding regular results for the NWA at that point in time was difficult. People weren't talking about it. They had that so much buzz on the backs of Cabana and Pierce, the 7 levels of hate. And they had a lot of great champions already put in these spots. And then Tharp took over, and we had that deal with New Japan, so that everything was still rolling very smoothly. You know, the title went from Tokyo Monster to Cahagas. You know, he was supposed to wrestle Jack Stane early on, and you know, Jack Stane was injured, and Conway stepped in for him. And Conway took that title to New Japan Wrestling, wrestled at Wrestle Kingdom, you know, had a series of matches with Satoshi Kojima, who he ended up losing the title to, would gain it back, all the while teaming with Jack Stane in Japan, having defended the the NWA World Tag Team titles against the IWGP Tag Champions in Harry Smith and Lance Archer. So like there was some bright spots during the Tharp era as well, but when it slowed down, and when it slowed down hard. So it was it's very good to see a lot more things positive happening with the NWA currently. Sean Mega says, who's booking NWA USA? Now, the head booker for the NWA is also the guy who writes the checks, and we're talking about Billy Corgan. He is the guy. So all the good, all the bad, everything that you see, it's Billy. You know, if you love Power, then you have to thank Billy. If you hate Power, you have to blame Billy. It all stops with him. Now you do have different agents and producers working the show. We know that Jazz is part of that. Homicide in the past was part of the one of the producers backstage. We know that uh, oh gosh, who else was involved? We know that Medusa has been a part of it. Raven's been a part of it. Of course, Nick Aldis is going to have a voice in the back, and Tim Storm is also going to have a voice in the back. But it's been very interesting to see this dynamic of the little ship that could, the little train that could, back when this thing kicked off on October the 8th, 2019. The first episode of POWERRR launches on YouTube and has so much success, and for things to stall and slow down and the pandemic and everything else, and now we're starting to see the bright lights of that choo-choo train coming through. So it's exciting. Jason Newsom says, "Sup, J Cal? I got to meet Jason Newsom in Nashville. That was it was a treat. And thanks for saying hi and taking a photo with me. I do appreciate that." John Farmer says the Briscoes on commentary tonight during the tag team match should be worth the price of admission alone. Did you hear the promo that they cut on FTR recently? Just insane. It's just, they were fired up, and when them boys get fired up, man, like, forget about it. Having those guys on commentary should be a lot of fun. I hope they have their finger on the censor buttons, because you never know exactly what's going to be said or what's going to happen. But for sure, part of the, again, talking about with Tony Khan purchasing Ring of Honor, if that affords the opportunity for the NWA to secure more talents like, OGK, they're splitting duties between Impact and the NWA. But if we get more talents like the Briscoes, just fantasy booking here, you got Rhett Titus, who's your TV champion. If we see more of Rhett Titus, perhaps maybe we can get more guys who are similar in value, right? Who are some top names, but also free agents that might not necessarily be on AEW's radar. So it'll be cool to see where it's at. Terry says that this podcast is a lot better than this is the NWA podcast. I very much enjoy my friendship with Will Martin, Rob Stinson, and Gary Horn, and the cycling door of co-hosts they have on that show. I value my friendship with those guys very much. I do enjoy what they do. It's hard for me to keep up with every episode that they put out, but there's a mutual admiration society between me and those guys. We're all brothers, and that's the thing about doing this podcast. And like Rick Del Santo, the Pro Wrestling Zone podcast, we shared it on the Instagram stories, but he's starting to do an NWA featured podcast. I hope you guys will check his show out as well, because it's going to feature a lot of stories from the past, present, and future for the NWA. And Rick is a very passionate wrestling fan like me. Rick and me are very similar, except for he's based in the Northeast and I'm based in SoCal. So make sure you check out his show. I think you'll like it a lot. Hustler says Raven is booking NWA USA. And, Hustler, I know you have been right on a lot of things, but as far as I know, the man who still does the majority of the booking, in fact, I think he does all the booking, is going to be Billy Corgan. Now, having different agents a part of it certainly can help craft some of the stories that they're trying to tell. But at the end of the day, there's one guy who says yay or nay to everything, and that's Billy, 100%. Yeah, Rick, Rhett Titus, and I think he's was at the tapings. I'm almost positive he was. So yeah, I would like to see Rhett Titus more and more involved with the NWA as well. He's one of those guys that I think is highly underrated. He's been around forever, and he is a great grappler in the ring. He does do a lot of that pure wrestling style, but he's not just limited to that, as we saw with his match with Colby Corino and Austin Aries already in the NWA. And then Shane Taylor in the NWA would be quite amazing. I think, especially if you bring the Shane Taylor Promotions, treat it as a whole, right? If you could bring the whole, that whole team to the NWA, I mean, you instantly have someone to feud with the Fixers. Shane Taylor, I mean, he's a dude who, let's not forget, Shane Taylor and Keith Lee were a tag team for a long time in the Texas independent wrestling scene, and he's a guy that would fit in very well with a lot of these guys who, broke into the business from Texas. So yeah, I'm cool with that. Hustler, man, if you're right about Tony Khan buying Impact, I just don't know what to think, man. You know, you're the first person I've heard say that. You're the first person I heard say that. So if it comes out in 6 months from now and he's in Impact holding an Impact title and talking about how he bought Impact, then I will give you all the credit in the world. But I hope to God you're wrong, because I don't want Tony Khan to own every aspect of pro wrestling. And then he says the New Japan Pro Wrestling Library next week. I mean, again, you might be onto something, but I hope you're wrong. I like, and it's nothing personal. It's just I don't want anyone to own Impact Wrestling but Anthem, or someone who's going to treat Impact the way it deserves to be treated. You know, the Impact is that if you watch that show, I don't see it in its entirety, but I see lots of clips and things. It looks pretty good. And if you have time to watch it, I'd recommend it. It looks like a fun show to me. I've checked out on occasion. I've watched them on the Pluto app, watching I guess it's on Pluto. They have their own kind of like a channel, 24/7 channel, but it's a lot of the older stuff. Like the other day I was watching it and I got to watch AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. And I'm thinking, that's amazing. How awesome would that be to see today? Rosville's in the house. What's going on, Rosville? Heaves is in the house. What's up, Heaves? And yeah, I did get to meet Hustler at the Crockett Cup. We talked on Sunday. I don't know if you've been watching my channel, Mr. Hustler, but I have been adding those short videos like you suggested. I am seeing some positive growth with that, so I thank you for that recommendation. I've got a lot more coming too. I've got stuff that I filmed from United Wrestling Network. There's stuff from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And then there's stuff from the indies here in Southern California. Oh, and then also the Lucha promotions that I've been to in Mexico, Crash. So you're going to see a lot more of short little stories on Jay Cal's YouTube channel, The Alliance Blog. Make sure you subscribe. Young Writer says Caprice Coleman on NWA USA. Right? I mean, that threw me for a loop, but you got to remember that guy, he didn't have a serious injury where he had to retire. He just had an opportunity to be an announcer for Ring of Honor. And I mean, getting paid to do anything is a win. So, Caprice could still go, man. And I don't know what the plans are him for long-term with the NWA. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but I think it's smart. These guys are talented. There's a lot of talented dudes in that were in Ring of Honor that don't look like they'll be coming back. So, I don't know if they're going to bring back Ian Riccaboni. I don't know if they're going to bring back, Jeff Koff. I don't know what people from behind the scenes. What's Delirious doing? I mean, does he need a job? Because he isn't booking Ring of Honor. Tony said that's going to be him. So there's a lot of dudes out there that have a lot of potential. We'll see how this all pans out. Heap says Caprice on the mic will be fun. I agree, man. The dude can cut a promo. And who knows, again, we've got so many championships. Got the national title, the television title. You've got the tag team titles, both women and men's, by the way, the junior heavyweight title, the world's heavyweight title. Now would be the time, if you're bringing in these talents, to start setting things up. We talked about it on this podcast. We talked about it on the Alliance guys. It's always nice to have 5 good, really legitimate contenders for each title. So if you have 5 legitimate tag teams, 5 legitimate competitors for the TV title, 5 legitimate competitors for the national title, and then of course, making that with your heavyweight title, your junior heavyweight title, and your women's championships. I mean, that's all going to be dope. All going to be good. Bobby Machito says he'd like to see Barrett Brown wrestling in the NWA against Homicide. Man, that would be fantastic, but I'm not holding my breath for it. They had ample time to bring in Barrett Brown. Barrett Brown was literally just waiting for that phone call. And I don't think he's too proud to come back at any time, but I just don't see it happening. Terry McDermott says, I wonder if Khan is trying to monopolize independent wrestling. See, the thing is he'll never monopolize independent wrestling, but, by galvanizing AEW with Ring of Honor. I mean, we all said when he started signing these talents to AEW that, whoa, Tony, you can't fit all these guys on one roster. Well, now he doesn't have to. A lot of these guys would make sense working in Ring of Honor, which might be like a tier 2 show instead of the tier 1 show, or maybe they treat it as a tier 1 show and throw guys like CM Punk and throw guys like Bryan Danielson onto that show with a bunch of young kids like an MJF or well, maybe not MJF, maybe that's not the way to go, but Wheeler Yuta or Daniel Garcia, and make it more of a work rate show and allow AEW to be what it was. But I don't know. They can go so many different ways with this. And the fact of the matter is that if you sign all those people and Ring of Honor is no longer an option, that means that promotions like United Wrestling Network are now more of a destination. The NWA is more of a destination. Impact Wrestling is more of a destination, because if you can't land with what Tony Khan is doing, then there are other substitutes for you. Now, maybe the money won't be as good, but there'll also be a lot more opportunity and a lot more freedom to work in more places. So I think for those who are willing to put in the work, there's so much opportunity available. Sean Mega says the best commentator in the biz is Caprice Coleman. Would you put Caprice in the booth with Joe Galley and just call it a day? Or would you rather see Caprice in the ring? Heap says, I finally got around to watching Aldis versus Gresham, and it was fun. If AEW does Gresham dirty, I hope the NWA brings him in for a taping. I think he's already signed with AEW, and he's probably going to still be a part of Ring of Honor. They probably won't bring him into AEW except for maybe pay-per-views that will feature Ring of Honor talent. I mean, that's what I would say. Sean Mega says oversaturated. Yeah, I mean that's true. The market is oversaturated. But again, when you see United Wrestling Network, they consolidated 3 markets into one. And so one touring show, it certainly has more. Each opportunity within United Wrestling Network is more meaningful now, instead of only appearing in Arizona or only appearing in Hollywood or only appearing in Atlanta. By appearing, if you can make it to that show, you're now appearing in like multiple big markets: Atlanta, Hollywood, Arizona, and then all the other markets that they're in several. I mean, look, if you look at the United Wrestling Network is in multiple markets, and they're currently on a few Sinclair channels. So I mean, it's not like it's unheard of for this kind of opportunity to happen. Let's see. Heeb says, I'm enjoying how NWA is front loading these shows right after the pay-per-view, several solid weeks of NWA TV in a row. I hope it's not just front loading. I think this might be a new way of their thought process. Because if they let the shows can't keep like sputtering into a championship series or a team war type thing. Like, they're going to have to at some point figure out a way to keep this thing moving forward with positive storylines. And if they crash out right before a premiere live event, then so be it. At least they have that opportunity to build up to the pay-per-view. But I sure hope that they don't do the same formula that they've been doing, because I feel that would be death for them. Sean Mega says, put him in the booth. DKM says, put him in the booth. Yeah, okay, cool, man. I'm on board. Put him in the booth. However, our pal Dave Scooby says Coleman has a few matches at the tapings and he can still go. And that's the thing. If you got a guy that can still go, do you put him in the booth? Tim Storm, who I absolutely adore, is not just a wrestler, not just as a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion, but as a human being. I mean, he could still go. He can't go the same speed he went 3 or 4 years ago, but he's still got a few matches left in the tank too. If you put him strictly in the booth, you kind of eliminate that opportunity, maybe for something special. Bobby Battista says Marche Rocket wrestles against Jay Bradley last Saturday on NWA USA in a number 1 contenders match for the national championship and ended in double disqualification. Marche Rocket is cursed for that national title. That's the second time he's tried to get a number 1 contenders opportunity and not work. More of your comments. Young Ryder says he wants to see Caprice Coleman in the ring. I'm all for that. Chair McDermott says, I remember Danny Williams was the only announcer in Tulsa, and he had he did great doing solo, some with Paul Bosch. Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite commentators was Joey Styles, and not for the reasons you think. I honestly thought he was great at doing commentary, and for the longest time, he was in the booth by himself. I think that was more of a cost measure, but I felt like that he did a great job of doing color and the play-by-play. With the NWA currently, you've got multiple color commentators and only really one genuine play-by-play guy. Joe Galley will give you the story. Uh, you know, adding Caprice to the booth, I think, would be fun. But then you also have Tim Storm, who's available. You also still using Velvet. You're still using Austin Idol. And if any of those people were able to step away for whatever reason, then I mean, sure. But as of right now, it's like it just feels like that booth is crowded as it is. Bobby Batista says, I'd like to see Victor Benjamin have more matches for the junior heavyweight division. I don't know we're going to see any more Victor Benjamin in the NWA. I mean, I hadn't heard anything about him being at the TV tapings. And I feel like maybe once Lady Frost was gone, I think he left as well. Heeb says, is DKM and Friends show this weekend still on? I saw World Class had to cancel because the building is being closed. Yes, Heebs. Iconic Heroes of Wrestling Excellence will be having their 2022 debut this Thursday night, March 31st. In fact, we're going to have a special guest host with us on Thursday night. We're going to be featuring NWA Gold, Tim, my buddy, my pal, my friend. He'll be my co-host for the night, my guest co-host, as Mr. DKM will be busy presenting the Excellence Championship at IHWE, and he'll also be working that show with folks out there. Yeah, I know it's a mouthful, but I could just say IHWE. That would be easy too. Devin, it's okay to be late, man. You just have to go back and watch the show later. It got kind of bad. I'm going to be honest. This wasn't my best show today, but you guys picked me up in the second half, so I appreciate you all. Willie says, what's up to DKM? Devin Dowling says, Joe Galley is the man. Velvet is give or take. We need a solid number 3, though. If you're going with a 3-man booth, I think Caprice Coleman would probably gel very well with Velvet Sky and Joe Galley, much the way Tim Storm does, because Caprice Coleman doesn't go into business for himself. And I like Austin Idol as a manager, but when he's in the booth, especially with Velvet Sky, it just gets hard to hear, hard to pay attention. Let's see. Sean Mega says, fire Velvet, fire Idol, and let Tim wrestle. I mean, hey, man, I'm not against that either. I'm not. Willie says the Briscoes versus La Rebellion would be a great match. Absolutely. And that might be our 70th or 74th anniversary World Tag Team title match. I mean, I don't know when the next tapings are for the NWA, but this is going to last. It should last close to 3 months. And so we're in March. We go April, May, June. And that means July would be like the next pay-per-view, or maybe they push it to August and do another premiere live event. But if that's the case, I mean, look, you've got a long ways before the 74th anniversary show, and a lot of things could happen by then. Bobby Batista says, who's next to challenge for Tyrus? Now, we heard on Power that it's going to be like a body slam challenge. If you could body slam Tyrus, you get a shot at the title. And I don't think there's anybody on the roster right now that can body slam him. You know, you look at a guy like Chris Adonis, he's hurt. He's not in the picture. You look at Tom Latimer, he's hurt. He's not in the picture. Could Aldis body slam him? Aldis is looking for his own world title shot. Trevor Murdoch? Maybe. Maybe he doesn't care about the TV title right now. And then you start looking on the roster. Could Perro do it? Can Odinson? You know, could Harry Smith? I think Harry Smith could. Devin, if you're watching late, no, I didn't lose my camera. I've been good all day. And my wife is not in right now. No, I just honestly I guess I read through my news faster than I thought I would, and it just slowed down the show, and we didn't have a lot of dialogue, so it kind of drowned. It's always better when you guys are part of the show. Believe me, I enjoy your commentary. If you guys don't talk and it's just me talking, the show won't last the whole hour. I don't have that much to say. Don't let Austin Idol sit at the commentator's booth. He sounds terrible. Yeah. DKM says there will be a great show Thursday. I had to reread this comment multiple times, DKM, because I wasn't sure you wrote titles. I thought I read something else, and I'll let you guys try to guess what that is. Willie Bowen says, will Lord Butt defend his TV title on POWERRR or USA? It should be POWERRR, but I don't see him defending it for a while. And this kind of gives him a good opportunity to not push him towards that best of 7. That lucky number 7. He only needs 2 more victories before he can challenge the world's heavyweight champion. And that man right now is Matt Cardona. Now, if you really want to make Tyrus into a babyface, you have him kick Austin Idol to the curb. You have him leave Idolmania Sports Management, and then you have him win those 2 matches, one against VSK, the other against Mike Knox. And that puts him into contention for the World's Heavyweight Championship. And he could be your last bastion of hope to get the 10 pounds of gold back in the NWA. Did I just honestly book Tyrus to win the world's title? Whew. DKM agrees with me. Harry Smith could probably body slam Tyrus. Devin Dowling says, Big Daddy Mims. You know, Mims, he is a big, strong boy, but I don't know if he could slam Tyrus. That guy is close to, what, they said 470? I mean, he's a big guy. Very, very big. Pipe Picasso says, I wouldn't mind Aldis doing commentary more often. See, the problem with Aldis doing commentary is I think he is a guy, unless he's injured, I don't want him in the commentary booth. If he can wrestle, put him in the ring. That was my big complaint with Aldis. That was my big hindrance on him as a world's heavyweight champion. I don't feel like he was out in the ring enough. And the guy he's one of the best. He's one of the greatest wrestlers we're going to see in our lifetime. He's a 5-tool player. I'm not going to put him next to Bret Hart, but I'm going to put him in maybe the top 25 in the last 20 years. He carried the World's Heavyweight Championship. He did some things with that title that no one else could do. So you got to give him his due, whether you like him or not, whether you think he's an asshole or not. The fact of the matter is that he went out there and represented the NWA, and for that, we're all lucky to have him. With that being said, I don't need him to win the title right now. I don't need him to be the next world champion. I want to see him just continue to help grow the brand. And if that means being the perfect opponent for Matt Cardona while Cardona cements his legacy as NWA World Champion, then so be it. You know, I honestly felt like they should have just left him and Doug Williams as a tag team and let them win the Crockett Cup, go after the tag titles, and take Aldis in a whole new direction and be a lot more meaningful for the NWA in a different role than as the top contender for the World's Heavyweight Championship. But they denied us of that, so let him chase the title but not win it. That's my 2 thoughts anyways. 2 cents. Oh, man, we're getting close to running out of time, but we'll see how this goes. I want to get to more of your comments. Pipe Picasso says Clearwater doing the Rick Rude is okay, but he's so much more than that. Agreed. I think Jordan Clearwater is a hybrid of both being underutilized and overexposed. I would like to see him in more serious matches, but from what I understand, he's having a great time. So it's kind of hard to tell somebody like, hey, take a back seat when he's having so much fun out there. Bobby Petito says, I would like to see Angelina Love and Mandy Leon wrestle in the NWA. It could happen. I think Angelina Love has been on these tapings or will be. Devin Dowling says, I want it to be Murdoch, but I think Pope will be the one to defeat Cardona. He hurt Pope 2 pay-per-views ago. The storyline is there for Pope, and honestly, that would be my choice. If you're going to take anyone in the NWA, if you're not going to give me Jack Stain, then give me the Pope, and I'm good with that. And with that, guys, I'm going to say we should call it a day because we're 5 minutes away from POWERRR. But I do appreciate you guys joining us on the hour before POWERRR. And until next time, we'll see you at the matches.
Thanks for checking out the pre-party, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. You should hit that subscribe button and join our community. I also want to remind you that we recap NWA POWERRR every Thursday at 8 p.m. in the live stream. We try to stay social, so find us at the Alliance blog. And until next time, we are the Alliance.